an honor to speak to y'all tonight on behalf of Hunt for the Cure. I'm so nervous.
You're good, you're good.
I never expected that I'd actually come here tonight. I was at the reunion for Texas Hunt for the Cure about a few months ago, and they invited me here, and I was, jokingly coming. I didn't think I'd actually make it here. I would like to start my journey of how I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer, and then I'd like to end it on how I met all of Hunt for the Cure people. So let's start our journey on December 27th, 2018, around 3 in the morning. I woke up in pain like I've never before experienced. The pain was so intense I didn't want to move, much less walk. Later that morning, my father took me to hospitality ER. They ran several tests that took most of the day. Later that morning, I left with medicine to help with the pain and an appointment with an MRI the next day. After my MRI finished, my mom was on a phone call with my local doctor, Dr. Hudson. He said that we needed to be at his office immediately. Shortly after we got there, Dr. Hudson took my parents into another room to talk to them. When they came back, my mom was crying, and my dad had a serious look on his face. I don't remember much, but all I can remember is I was handed a pair of crutches and told not to walk on my left leg for a long time. That evening, my parents sat me down on my bed and told me that I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer. We cried for a little bit, sat in the room. The following Monday was New Year's Eve. We drove down to Dallas for my first appointment at Children's Medical Center. When I arrived, I remember thinking this is the most scariest, welcoming place I've ever been to. The air was so dry and cold, it smelled like hand sanitizer. I hated it. I can't explain to you the fear and anxiety I was feeling. The only thing that kept me sane were my family and my friends. I thought to myself, this was not a good way to start 2019. We were taken into room 18 because room 18, my life changed forever in that room. That's where I met my doctor, Dr. Levy, a world-renowned oncologist, and Dr. Mitchell, who sadly went to TU. We talked, I'm pretty sure they were explaining everything, but I really didn't care. After all, it's a blur. I was admitted for the first time to room D16. They knew how to make a good first impression. That room had great air conditioning, the best view of Dallas I'd ever seen. And the best part was there were 2 nights and 3 days, and I never got to see that nice room again. Next time I was admitted for 5 days. This time it was unbearable. I hated it so much, the only enjoyable things I did were exploring the hospital and making friends with the nurses. During this stay, I started a YouTube channel, as all 12-year-old boys do. I started doing updates on my journey with cancer. By my second video, I was already losing hair, and it killed me that it was taking place so fast. My chemo treatments cycled for 3 days, then 10 days off, and 5 days of chemotherapy, and 10 days off again, until my hip replacement surgery. That's when it hit me that life will never be the same. I will never again be able to play the sports I want to, let alone run long distance. We left the morning of April 15th, about 3 a.m. It's the longest drive to Dallas I'd ever experienced. We went to a new floor, floor 5. I'd never seen it. Shortly after we got there, they stuck me a few times, but I was so used to being a pincushion by this point, it barely even hurt. My sister Abigail tried to comfort me by laying next to me in my hospital bed. I was sent into the operating room and then blacked out. Once finished, I felt absolutely terrible. I was cold on one side, while at the same time hot and scared on the other. Eating was hard. I could barely eat a bag of chips. My dad helped ease my fear by reminding me that I had the better bed. His was a small, 4-foot-long pull-out bed. not like a regular bed. No, his was a 4x4. I wanted to laugh at him trying to sleep on it, but it hurt too much. After all of that, I had a month off of everything to get used to my new hip. I worked with a physical therapist. They did all these exercises to get me in shape, to relearn how to walk. My goal was to run. After a while, it stopped helping. In fact, it did the opposite. My legs started hurting me so bad that after physical therapy, it was hard to walk. During this time, I attended a drone camp where I learned to build and fly racing drones. I was good enough that people would stop to watch me fly it in the atrium at Children's Medical Center. During all of this, I met Marie. She told me to make a wish list and she'd get it for me, within reason, of course. Marie is the one who told my dad about Shane and Texas Hunt for the Cure and how amazing it was. We met Shane at this barbecue cookout hosted by Canton RV Center. We got to know him and kept in touch with him. Then he gave me the option of hunting or deep sea fishing. I chose the deep sea fishing. So my dad and I drove to Florida with Shane, where we met Michael and Jillian Schwartzman. They took care of us in their house. They let us use a 2-person bedroom and let Shane use a pull-out bed in their upstairs guest. The next day, we went to a sea turtle sanctuary, a wildlife refuge, and the beach, and a Johnny Mango's bar and grill. Johnny Mango's had some of the best seafood I had in a while. I had conch fritters, which I didn't know what they were. I thought they were hush puppies. If I were told what they were, I probably would not have eaten them. The next 2 days were, on the third day, we went deep sea fishing. Just me and my dad. It was very uneventful. I mean, we were on a boat with a bunch of introverted men, so it was very boring, other than the fact that we caught some king mackerel. The next 2 days were arguably the best of being there. Wednesday after lunch, we went to the gun range, got a gun sighted in for hog hunting, while all the other Florida rednecks did their own thing. While we were there, I got to shoot a tannerite jar. It took forever to shoot it, but on my last shot, I blew it to smithereens. The afternoon, we took a long nap and ate dinner, and then we got prepared to venture out into whatever Florida considers the woods. So we got there and checked out all of the amazing machinery that we're going to be working with, and went out on this 10-foot tall, like, monster truck, made by the people who were taking us. It was hard for me to stay comfortable on it because it felt like it was going to fall apart. We ended up finding a good spot to park and then started walking by foot. They set me up in a good spot to shoot. By that time, the hogs knew that we were there. They bolted, but I followed one, shot it in the snout and the chest, and won. Surprisingly, it still wasn't dead. So Mike went up to it, shot it with a pistol, and finished it. Turns out it was a young hog. I cried so much on the way back knowing I had ended its life. We kept exploring for a while until about past midnight. Thursday was the big day, deep sea fishing with Mike, Shane, and George. As we headed out there, we heard about this thing called coronavirus. I'm pretty sure you all know what it is. If you don't, you've been living under a rock. We finally made it to our first spot, and 30 minutes into it, we caught a shark. It was about 8 feet long. It was on the line for a good 2 to 3 minutes. Then it snapped, and the shark got away. Later that day, we caught a queen triggerfish. It was the most beautiful fish I'd ever seen, with a yellow body and blue stripes. Later that evening, we went to a bar. I had no idea why, but we sat next to these 2 ladies. Might I remind you, we were at a bar. So I was put next to the most drunk, happy lady I could think of. She was all around me, I was looking at my dad saying, "Help me." The final day, we had eaten a good breakfast with Mike and Jillian and Shane, and headed on our way home. It was a long and weary drive, but we stayed alive. Thank you so much for letting me speak here tonight. By the way, if you'll go ahead and pull out your checkbooks, we made a box over there if y'all want to go check it out.